My guest, Connor Wetling, has done many things in life, and that has led to his life's philosophy of living a life of intention. Join me as we learn about the twists and turns that has him using improv and stoicism to help him navigate a life when sometimes things just come flying at you unexpectedly. Welcome to Life Mosaic. Hi, I'm Wheezy, and I love to share stories that connect the generations, weaving together the threads of life into a beautiful and lasting legacy. This is a space where every moment and memory matters, embracing the joy, the challenges, and everything in between that shapes who we are. Join me as I uncover and celebrate the living legacy that transcends time and space, creating the mosaic of life, one story at a time. Deep breath to let out the nerves, and we're gonna we're gonna start this baby up. I am so happy to introduce you to Connor. I am so glad that he could join us here today. Connor, how are you doing?
I'm great, Wheezy. I'm happy to be here. Genuinely. Thank you for having me. This is
You're so
awesome.
you're so welcome. I have to say, Connor and I met through I took his workshop on improv because I wanted to learn how to just have more fun being in front of the camera and with my guest and be able to shift conversation if need be. Would that be a good explanation of what something we learned in your class?
Yeah, definitely. And I love that's how we met. We met under the strangest of circumstances. What a good story. An
Yeah,
improv
really.
class. Uh-huh.
And we're all about the story here. So,
Yeah.
so Connor is going to share part of his story, and he's moved about a bit in his life, and it's a very colorful story, and I think you're going to enjoy it. Um, so with that being said, your career path has kind of taken some twists and turns. You started out in the Marines as a pilot. Let's hear about that.
Yeah, that is correct, Wheezy. On all accounts, guilty as charged. A career path that has taken some twists and turns. I guess the silver lining is they were all twists and turns, kind of my own creation. So I'm responsible for the mess or the adventure. But yeah, started out in the military. I wanted to be a pilot. I wanted to serve in the military. The Marine Corps was the most attractive option to me, when I was in my early 20s because it had the reputation for being the hardest, being the toughest, the most challenging. And I wanted to make that happen. And I was fortunate. I did get to fly in the Marine Corps for a few years. So, yeah.
Um, so you've been in the Marine Corps, you've been a youth director, you've been a house flipper, and now you're into improv and public speaking. How did those different times pivots? How did you pivot through each one of those?
I've always been a very curious person by nature. There's been a little bit of restlessness in my soul. And it's odd, Wheezy. Looking back now, it's like, I had this thing going, I was doing this thing, and then I tried to trust an instinct, a hunch, follow a passion, see where a trail could lead. And I can confidently say I've never been willing to try to make a thing happen. And so if there's a thread through any of that, it goes back to, you might remember this, the number one rule that we had in improv was a willingness to say yes. And it's an acceptance as a mindset and a willingness to take the idea and try to build on it. And so it was opportunities in life that might have popped up or things that I wanted to try to do. And I was willing to say, yes, I'm going to give this a shot and see what happens. And sometimes things worked out and sometimes things didn't. But I think the optimism, the positivity, the hopefulness, in the Marine Corps, they always say hope is not a course of action. It's still very helpful to be hopeful. And so those things kind of kept me going. And it has been an odd career path that's led me to where I am now. But looking back, it's been enjoyable. It's it makes connecting with people much easier when you have a broader base to stand on of experiences. And so I'm grateful for that.
And I would think with doing that, it has really impacted you getting to know yourself better and to be able to grow from that.
Absolutely. The comparison trap, Wheezy, is tough.
Mm-hmm.
And we live in a world now where it has never been easier to see what other people are up to in life. And it's a challenge still to not look back sometimes and question the decisions I made. Oh, if I'd have stayed in that career, I'd be doing much better financially right now. Or if I'd have stayed in that career, I might have a position of authority that's more than what I have right now. And it becomes the challenge not to buy into that. So I've had to grow through that. And it's a constant task of, pushing that aside each day and focusing on the path that I have and doing the best that I can with that. But yeah, definitely growing through that.
Yeah. Um, of course, when we're preparing for the podcast, I ask you a little background stuff, and you
Mm-hmm.
you said something in there that some of your no's have been as important as your yeses. Could you share one of those moments with us?
I think for me, so my wife Rachel and I have 4 children, and when I look back on a lot of the things that I said no to, they were the shiny objects career wise that would have guaranteed me a track of success as it's measured more socially, higher income, higher status, a bit more prestige, a track that is by external markers. You're doing it. The American male, you're doing it right. You're working all day. You're busy, busy, busy.
Hmm.
I said no to a lot of things because I chose to put my family first. And there was some personal guilt that I carried about those decisions, some second guessing for years. But looking back on that now, Wheezy, our oldest child, he's 17 years old. And it is a tremendous blessing to me that my 17-year-old still asks me to go hang out with him on a Saturday. It means a lot to me that my 15-year-old still will walk up and want me to do something with him. My 13-year-old daughter still wants to have a game of pig with me in the driveway. It's rewarding to know that the things that I said no to have resulted in things that I can unequivocally say yes to that today, because I'm a firm believer that the relationships matter the most, at the end of it all. And so, yeah, I don't suppose I could think of a specific thing that I said no to. The specifics I would have in mind right now are still the ones sometimes it's like, did I make the right decision? But that's a tough game to play, the what
It
if.
is.
Yeah,
It
you go
is.
back and I sometimes think about life in these terms, that there's a million different opportunities we have that can lead to millions of different outcomes. And it's like if I were to go back and pick one of those things and change it, those second and third order effects might change everything I love about the life that I have today. So there's acceptance where I am. And
Well,
yeah.
I give you kudos for that because there's being a story listener with my with the people that I work with. There's a lot of times that you hear, you read the stories, you see it in the movies and stuff where people chose to go chasing off and the ramifications that can come from
Mm-hmm.
choosing that. So I give you kudos. It and the thing is they're not kids forever,
Right. Yeah.
And I'm in my early 60s and I feel like and a lot of times I feel like I'm just getting started.
Uh-huh.
I'm just getting started leading
Yeah.
the life that I wanted to lead. But the thing that comes with that is more confidence, more assurance, because it's like I've been through a lot of crap.
Mm-hmm.
And I know what I like, I know what I'll do, and I know what I
Yeah.
won't do. And so a lot does come with age. So you might, it may, now might not be the time. This is what I call this when I give these little pep talks, this is called my wheezy wisdom.
I'll take some wheezy wisdom. Yeah.
Or advice from Mama Wheezy.
Uh-huh.
But you may not have it now, but um there's still lots of life and lots of time and opportunity. So, you know, hold those dreams open and they may still come to pass because I was probably about your age when I got into video.
Yeah.
I was in my mid 40s
That's
and
right. Uh-huh.
I was in my mid 40s and I didn't even realize that I was fulfilling what I thought was a child that was kind of a childhood fantasy for me. I never thought I could ever do anything like this because I was that little country kid. Country kids are, I don't know. There's some kind of
Yeah.
stigmatism that we all carry with us of like
Oh,
what you
sure. Yeah.
and some of the most successful people, come from that background.
Uh-huh.
But anyways, I didn't even realize until probably 8 years ago that it's like, you know what? I'm living my childhood dream because I would watch TV and I would just go, "Oh my gosh, if I could just, do something like that."
Yeah. I think that's important to recognize and call out and share that though, Wheezy. This idea that the script is not written in advance of what you have to do, and to know that to the maximum extent possible, there are ways to make those kind of dreams happen,
Mhm.
and the parents you were born to don't dictate the person you have to be, and the story can be written, or kind of the phrase is you can build the plane while you're flying it, and you figure it out, and then it is rewarding to hear like you've arrived at the point where you've built the plane, and it's the one you were hoping for,
Yeah.
so that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think about that a lot, and I appreciate that, and I'm that's wisdom I will take, that just that kudos that I did the right thing, because I think I read it somewhere. I came across it, this idea that we don't get to choose our parents, but we can, in some sense, choose who we want to be children to. And the point there is, example could be you read great biographies. And you say you have parents that didn't set a great example, but you read great biographies and you can pick things in life that you want to have, or you find a great mentor. You
Right.
know somebody like a Wheezy who's willing to give out wisdom, and you can follow that. And so you can shape yourself to be the child of the type of person you would want to have as a parent. And it's like my hope is that, or backing up, it's like my closeted fear is one day my children are gonna be old enough to recognize, whoa, the emperor has no clothes. Dad's not all he was made up to be. But my hope is that when they are older and they start to realize and get to know me more as an adult person, and they see sort of the full picture of me, that they're still at the point where they say, yep, dad's the type of guy I want to be. Dad's the type of man I want to be. Dad's, for my daughters, the type of daughter I'd still want to be, or the type of father I would still want to be a daughter of, that kind of thing. So I'm hoping I'm
Yeah.
going to take what you said and run with it.
Yeah. And it is true. We can make our own choices. And um but as you get older and as you go through different stages of life, that where you were looking at your parents and going, for real?
Uh-huh.
I can't believe that you're acting that way. I can't believe you have those beliefs. Then you hit that stage and you're
Yeah.
going, oh, now I know where they came from.
Uh-huh. Right.
Now I
Yeah.
know where they were coming from. And a lot of it is it's life fatigue.
Yeah. And I recognize those things, and I'm constantly recognizing that was a good trait that I absorbed. I'm grateful for that. That's one that I need to work on. So I'm going to work
Yeah.
on it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. So I guess we need to move on. So I'm going to move into improv now.
Mm-hmm. Yes, great question. We
Why,
no.
why is that such a good landing spot for you?
uh yeah. So improv is admittedly such an odd hobby. But the way I came to it, Wheezy, is you spoke a few moments ago about how when you were young and you would watch the television and you would think, if I could do something like that would be great. And looking back, I find that the times in my life where I experienced the most personal joy was when I was performing in some way.
Mm-hmm.
And it could have been as simple as the teacher walked out of the classroom and ninth grade Connor decides, hey, teacher's gone. This is my time for a 5 minute set. I'm going to start working my material. Like that kind of a thing. It's just always performing in some way. And it was the realization over time that I really like being in front of people, and I'm getting to your answer or answering the question. And so when I first got out of the Marine Corps and I had some new time on my hands, I tried stand up for a little while, and that was fun. But what I really enjoy is this kind of stuff, Wheezy. It's just talking to people,
Mm-hmm.
interacting with people. And I saw improv one time. I went to it was a speakers conference, a national speakers conference in Dallas, Texas in 2018, trying to learn more about speaking. I knew I wanted to get into professional speaking. And the opening act for this conference was an improv group. And I had never seen that done live. And I thought I saw a magic show where they receive suggestions from the audience and they create a scene or they make it up, they do it on the spot. And I was like, that's brilliant. It took me about 5 more years to actually try it. And I took one class and it was so much fun. And it's the power of laughter, Wheezy. It's the power of working with other people. There are
Mm-hmm.
days I don't want to go to an improv practice. There's days I don't want to go to an improv show, but I'm telling you, after the practice or after the show, you just feel so good. And it's just, I'm glad I did that. But what I learned along the way after being in the Marine Corps and learning leadership at a high level, after working with different groups to build teams, after studying humor in an academic setting or working through a master's program that dealt with leadership, I learned when doing improv that improv done really, really well follows rules that mirror all this other stuff that we're saying is important. But the trick with improv is it does it in such a fun way.
Yeah.
And so it's a neat way to learn, a neat way to teach, a neat way to connect with people, and it's fun. And I am convinced we are not having as much fun as we should be anymore. So that's kind of how I landed there, and kind of what keeps me going back to the well.
And that leads right into my next question because you do talk about, you went through a heavy period and an emotional heavy time in your life. And
Mm-hmm.
how did improv help you?
Yeah,
Uh,
I appreciate that question, Wheezy, because the answer is sort of twofold. There's two sides to the coin of what helped me, and both of them are what I speak on. One is the humor side of things, and that's really where improv helps. The other is the philosophy side, and the school of wisdom, specifically in philosophy, is Stoicism. So they call it the dark night of the soul, so to speak, was a period of about 3 years where the the emotional baggage I may have picked up along the way at some point, you mix in a little bit of PTSD with the military, you mix in transitioning from the youth of your adulthood, your late 20s, your early 30s, into your late 30s, early 40s. And it was just this sort of hurricane of difficult emotions that I struggled with. And I tried the traditional things, counseling. They did their best. That didn't help. Religion, I tried to rely on faith a bit more. That didn't quite work for me. These are all great tools, but what ended up helping me was relying on the power of humor and pulling back in my college, my first college love. It wasn't a girl, it was philosophy. Pulling that back in and applying it with intentionality. And those two things work together to really help me right the ship again.
Yeah. So going into that, could you just kind of describe what Stoicism represents?
Sure. And so if you're not familiar, it's a 2,000-year-old philosophy. It was came about between Athens and Rome in the kind of right around the late 200 BC, 100 BC period to really kind of reaching its high water mark in the first and second century AD. And the whole idea of Stoicism is that there are things we can control, Wheezy, and there are things we cannot control. And the more time we spend trying to focus on controlling the uncontrollables, the less shot we have at a good life. And the thing that I love is the list of what we can control is very, very short. It's about two
Mm-hmm.
or three things. We can control our thoughts, we can control our reactions, and we can control how we treat other people. Outside of that, it is all outside of our control. And you do the best you can to plan, but where we really get our armor in how we approach everyday life is in the understanding that it's what I add to it. What I think about the thing is really what is going to cause what is known as like a secondary suffering. Just the other day walking around my truck, I caught my shin on the hitch. That's bad. It's
Yeah.
painful.
Yeah. You're not going to be giggling or going,
No.
oh, you bad
Yeah.
hitch.
Uh-huh. But so often, what do? Connor a few years ago would have said, "You stupid trailer hitch." Well, it's an inanimate object. It didn't do anything. And so I've suffered once by the pain, but if I get upset and angry about it, I'm then suffering, two times. And so it's with Stoicism, there's a misconception that they're emotionless. Everybody thinks of
Mm-hmm.
Spock, all
Yeah.
rationality, no emotion. But in truth, it's not about being or it's not about being emotionless. It's just about being less emotional, which I think is helpful. So it has worked
That
for
that
me.
is good because you're right. We do think, and that's exactly why I asked you that, because it's always kind of think of stoic,
Yeah.
being
He's
like a
he's being very
stone.
stoic. Yeah. He's meaning has no emotion. Uh
Yeah.
is seems very unfriendly. That's lowercase s stoic. But what I'm talking about, what I sort of preach on these days is capital S, stoic in the old sense. So,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, between humor and that, I'm able to ride most of the waves. I still get life every now and then will jump out from the bushes when I walk by and punch me in the back of the head, but most of the days I'm okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I know all about that. Life coming out from the bushes and punchy.
Yeah. Sticking a As I walk by, life will put a stick out on the path, so I trip.
Yeah,
Yep.
let's trip.
Rascal. The fates.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, the stories we could share. We don't have time for that.
Yeah.
So back to the Stoicism. What is one saying in that really you can kind of hold on to that helps you through when
Yeah.
you've had a
So,
difficult time?
yep. I think for me personally, I'll give you my all-time favorite quote because it has helped me deal with what was the biggest mental demon that I had to slay, or mental dragon I had to slay. And that is the thing that I struggled with the most, Wheezy, was a fear of death. There was a time in my
Mm.
life where I had a beautiful family. Our kids were young. My wife was and has always been as loving as ever. It's like a great family. I was at the peak of my military career. I was a captain. I was doing the thing. Life was good. But
Mhm.
every day, I was terrified that I was going to die soon, that I was going to be ripped away from these things that mattered so much to me. So, what I had to come to terms with was that, and Stoics get into this. There's a lot of focus on death on the shortness of life in Stoicism, but it's not an exercise in morbidity. It's to get us to focus. Life is short, but if you know how to use it, it can be full. And so one of the quotes that sticks with me every single day is by Marcus Aurelius, which if have you ever seen the movie Gladiator?
No, but I definitely am familiar with
What?
it.
Oh,
Yeah,
it's
and
so good.
I live with a house full of men. So, or
All
well,
right.
I mean, our sons are, we have two sons and I have my husband, so it's usually guy stuff. And I have learned how to it's like, oh, you're
Tune it
talking
out.
guy stuff.
Movies for guys who like movies. Saturday mornings in
Yes.
the 90s and the 80s. If any of the
You would get
listeners,
along very well with my guys.
yeah, I'm sure then. But maybe if your listeners have seen it, Gladiator, the opening scenes, it's the old emperor is Marcus Aurelius. That might be most people's introduction to the name, but he wrote an incredible book that's we can still read today. But in it, one line, Marcus, as the emperor of Rome, reminds himself, he says, you could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think. And I tried to approach each day like that. The reality is, yes, I could leave life right now, but until that happens, I'm going to be appreciative for the time that I have and be
Hmm.
intentional in the things that I do, intentional in the thoughts that I have, and intentional in the things that I say, especially saying words like I love you, saying words like thank you, things like that, letting the
Hmm.
people know.
Yeah. I am so there with you about being intentional of that. And
That's not surprising. A person who wants to have a forum to allow other people to tell their stories is like it's a gift, Wheezy, because everybody wants to know their stories worth hearing. So it does
yeah.
not surprise me to hear that you are intentional about that. I didn't mean to cut you off, but I wanted to give you
Oh,
a bit of a what kudos like you did for me earlier. So
well, thank you.
yeah,
Thank you. The one story I wanted to share is my husband and I just celebrated our 40th wedding anniversary.
congratulations.
And
Where's the
something
trip to?
we're going to the beach
Oh, that's nice.
Friday.
All right, have
There's a
fun.
whole story behind that. The big trip will be next year.
Okay.
A side note, life interrupted this year, and I keep saying I'm going to just stop saying this, but it just keeps coming up. My husband was going to retire at the end of this year, but his company retired him in February.
Oh, life in the stick.
Monday morning, put the spokes right in that tire, and we all
Yep.
went flipping.
Uh-huh.
And so we were going to try to plan to go to Europe this year. And so we've just decided that we're going to put it off. And somebody gifted us a house at the beach
That is awesome.
for a week. And so we are leaving Friday.
Oh, that's awesome.
So that's all aside.
All right.
um, but being married for almost 40 years, I know I have annoyed my husband by doing this every day, but every day I make sure we hug, we kiss,
Mm-hmm.
and say, I love you.
Yeah.
And that is done with intentionality because what if something happened and how would you feel
Yeah. Yep.
if you did not say that? And that is a guilt I never, ever want to live with.
Yeah. And that's a great example, Wheezy. Like that is a perfectly apt example. And I struggle with that as well. And I live in this world of practicing these things daily and still have to remind myself of the importance of the little things. There's a beautiful exercise that Stoicism gives us, and it's contemporarily been called a last time meditation. And that's this idea that there will come a time in life where you'll have a last time for everything. And often we focus on the big things, the big last time events.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's high school graduation season now. You said this will air a little bit later, but people having their last days of high school. So we
Mm-hmm.
think about the big things, but the reality is everything as small as it can be will have a last time, like a last time to have a cup of coffee, a last time to do a podcast interview, a last time to tie shoelaces, to do your dishes, to get the mail. And it's the importance there, the purpose there is to appreciate the little things and be intentional about it.
Yeah. Yeah. I the last things I you talk about that and it's like, how about leaving? I'm at the age where we've lost our parents.
Yeah.
Um and I remember the last time that I saw my mom. It was during COVID and she lived in Pennsylvania. I was here, but long story short, it was during the shutdown and my loving cousin got a job in this facility where my mom was because her dad was there too. And you couldn't do the visits.
Mm-hmm.
And the day my last conversation with my mom was not the day she died. I It was a few days before. And when a person comes to the end of their life, they're a nice way to say it is euphoric, they're
Yeah.
not completely here. But you could tell she wasn't really with me, but I was talking to her, but I so enjoyed being able to see her face through that computer screen because she was watching something and whatever she was watching, it was like she loved birds and different things.
Uh-huh.
I could just see her watching these birds. But it was just like it was like childlike, just this wonder of whatever she was looking at. And that is I chose that
Yeah.
as my last seeing my mom.
Yeah.
But the following Tuesday was the day that she chose to pass on, and she lingered through the day, and they allowed my sister to come in, and she was making video calls to everybody who wanted to say goodbye. And I said, no, I
Yeah.
wanted to remember. I wanted to remember that. And
Yeah.
so we do like I said, long story short, and I think we were talking about intention.
Yeah, we
Um,
were.
that was an intention. I intentionally did that
Yeah,
because
you chose the moment.
I
Yeah.
chose the moment. And
Mm-hmm.
that is the site that I get to remember.
Yeah, that's awesome. That is beautiful, Wheezy. We had a similar situation like that in our family recently, and there's that intentionality to choose the moments that we're going to hang on to. And in my family, we've not experienced, going through death
Mm,
much yet. Time tells me, history tells us, if there's anything to it, we're going to start experiencing it more and more as the years
mm-hmm.
tick by. But we had to go through that recently as a family, and there was some thought put into, do we go and visit or do we remember the last visit and things like that. And it's challenging, I believe, because of the finality of it all,
Mm-hmm.
that I hope this is the right decision. But I think when your heart's right, that does count for something. So
Yeah. Yeah. It
uh
does.
yeah.
Um, so we'll get on to something a little more upbeat. So you talk about some of the life choices that you made and you chose, your intention was to not accept some things because you have these four beautiful children, and I
Mm-hmm.
can attest you do have a beautiful wife and a lovely wife because she
Thanks.
helped
She's
you.
pretty awesome. Yeah.
She helped you a lot with the workshop and everything. And
Yes, the improv
and
workshop.
she
Yeah.
yes, the improv workshop, and she was a great model, and she gave us many great examples.
So
um
shout out to Rachel. Yep.
Shout out to Rachel. And you two produced four beautiful children, which they'll be able to see pictures in the show notes. But my question is, tell us a story that kind of wraps up some of the chaos of having so many children and things going so many ways in your little family circus.
I could give you a recent one, Wheezy. And again, these are problems of our own creation. So I really can't complain too much. But I think it was 3 weekends ago or 4 weekends ago. I don't know. Time is a
Is
blurry
flying.
rainbow in our house of just coconuts flying around. But a few weekends ago, we had a gymnastics meet on a Friday morning for our youngest daughter. The next morning, there were there was an SAT, three soccer games with three different kids, followed by another soccer game in the afternoon with prom thrown in. I said thrown in. Look at that. I start talking about
Jordan.
thrown in. We throwed it in. That's how crazy this stuff is. Prom was that evening, and then the next morning, where it was a few more, like another soccer game. And oh no, 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 no! I know what it was. Saturday night. It was prom. I think followed by an improv show, and it was just it was sort of a what
Oh
are we
my
doing?
goodness.
And Rachel, I think Rachel posted something about all of this list, and she said these are the days we'll miss, and my response was miss them, I won't even remember them, this is a blur. So that's just a glimpse into the chaos, but we're trying to navigate, we're doing the right things. Don't get me started on the sports, youth sports in the
Mm.
country and the club stuff. We're trying it, I don't know. Anyway, we have, yeah, a lot of moving parts.
Yeah.
So
Once
yeah,
again, that is a topic that we could have a probably like-minded conversation.
it's, yeah, but
It's good, and there's a
yeah,
lot of good things about it, but then there's just a lot of things, and this is probably going to be a side note too. There's just a lot of things that go on, and it's like, why do you feel that you have to carry that kind of power on a kid's sports team? Your kid's
yeah,
not going to be, or what kind of pressure are you putting on your kids?
yeah. For us, it's as long as they're having fun and they still want to go and the passion is still there, I'm okay with it. But the second it becomes we're forcing them to go, that's where we'll definitely
Mm,
reassess the situation. But there are days where life feels, it requires us to ask, what are we doing? What are we really doing? But I give myself grace. I read a lot of books. I love reading. It's kind of how I see the world in a way. And I read one the other day that really helped. I think it was called 4,000 Weeks Time Management for Mortals. And in the back, it wrote this idea out that was brilliant to me because it helped me reframe something I was frustrated with. And it's, for example, our house. There's a lot of love in the house, but it also always looks like a tornado broke in and destroyed the place. Like it's a mess most times, but we are intentional about other things. We might not spend every evening cleaning up the house, but there are a lot of evenings where we'll go get ice cream. There are a lot of evenings where we'll kick a soccer ball around in the backyard. There are a lot of evenings where we'll go for a walk. And the point of the book that gave me a little bit of hope is to say you've got so much time. Choose the things you're willing to fail at today in order to succeed at something else. And it sort of goes back, if there's a through line in the interview right now in our conversation, I feel like it's intentionality, but it's we're trying to do the best we can and we're dropping some of the other things. If I get a full life, my kids will grow up in theory and leave home, and my wife and I will be stuck at home, and we'll have all evening to clean the house.
that's right.
So, yeah. My mom had a picture on the wall. It was like, growing up, our home is clean enough to be lived in, but messy enough to be loved in, something like that.
Oh, I
So,
love that. I love
I
that.
may have misquoted it. I just made that up on the fly. Then I don't know.
Well, you are all about improv, you know.
That is
It can
true.
be
I
whatever
am.
you want.
Yep. So,
The
yeah.
missayings of Connor Wentley.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Or
So
Wentling. I said your
Wentling, yep.
name. Okay, I'm going to say that over again because that was good. The misquotes of Connor Whitling.
There you go. They don't all make
Or
sense.
the improv quotes of
Yeah,
Connor Whitling.
right.
It's improv. You can do whatever you want
That's
and take
true.
it the direction
There,
you want.
yep. You follow the basic rules and then no rules apply. Yeah.
So you have hit this, but I just want to kind of rephrase it a little bit. If somebody who's listening right now is struggling, what is a what's one small powerful insight could you give to kind of shift their mindset? I know we've talked about it a bit, but I want to close out with this question
Sure.
for Connor wisdom.
Yeah. And I assume you're thinking sort of struggling mentally.
Um, yeah, because I
Yeah.
mean, we are living in rough times, and
Yeah. The
there's just
Chinese
some
proverb.
days.
Yep. May you live in interesting times. Yeah. Be careful what you wish for. So,
Yeah, because there's some things I listening to the news, it's just like going, what?
yeah, that would be step number one for someone struggling with mental health. Stop listening to the news. Yeah. Be very careful where you get your news from. I prefer history. The more books I read about the past, Mark Twain famously said, history doesn't repeat, but it rhymes. And
Mm-hmm.
so it's the more I read in the past, the more I realize we've been through this before, these things. But if I could give somebody a piece of advice, Wheezy, it would be don't be afraid to ask for help. Don't be afraid to put your hand in the air and say, I'm struggling here. I need some help. There, I believe it's gotten better nationally as far as the stigma associated with
Mm-hmm.
mental health goes. I think we're tracking in the right direction because it is becoming more acceptable to admit that we have a mental health problem. But for years, it felt like, if I broke my arm and went to a doctor, that would make perfect sense. If I had a bad cold and went to get some medication, that would make perfect sense. But if I went to seek help for an emotional issue I was facing, then for some reason I was seen as, I might be seen as not reliable or not steady, not
Weak.
stable, weak.
Or
Yep. And that was especially hard in the military, especially hard in the Marine Corps, and especially hard in aviation, where you are afraid to say anything is wrong, because if anything is wrong, there's the potential that I can't fly anymore. So it was layers upon layers. But just to quickly kind of pull it home, I would say don't be afraid to ask for help. And bringing it back to improv and stoicism quickly, if I can, in improv, one of those rules that we went over was to be a good scene partner. And that idea is knowing there are people in your life that if you need help, they're going to be there for you. Just like if you
mm-hmm.
and I were doing an improv scene and something happens and you can tell by my face, Wheezy, I've got no idea right now what to do next, then you can jump in with your good idea and then we're back on track. That's like an improv principle that is applicable here. But then from the Stoic side, Marcus Aurelius, again, the most powerful man in the world at the time, basically a god on earth, he wrote in his journal meditations, and these were his private writings to himself. He reminded him about the need to ask for help. He was the emperor of Rome, reminding himself that it's okay to ask for help. And he had a neat analogy. He said, when a soldier climbing a wall has injured his arm and he has to reach up for his comrade to be pulled up, we see that and we think, so what? He said, it's no different when you need help. And I think that is a pretty neat way of looking at it, knowing that this was the man who at the time had limitless power and authority, but still could admit it's okay to need help from time to time.
Yeah, yeah, that's awesome. And thank you for sharing that. And thank you for being here today and meeting with me. So, if somebody wanted to invite you to be a guest speaker,
All about that. I love to talk.
how would somebody find you?
The easiest way is going on to my website, which is www.connorwentling.com. So ConnorWentling.com. And from there, there are ways to communicate with me, to contact with me there. And truthfully, it's, phone is fine with me as well. Phone number is 803-984-5410. And I don't mind a call, a text, and it doesn't even have to be about speaking specifically, Wheezy. It could just be, I heard this thing, I'm struggling with this thing. what do you think? And I could maybe suggest a couple books, conversation starter, those kind of things. So I am always, if nothing else, happy to help.
Great. Well, Connor, our time is up, but um it was great just getting to know you more. I mean, I know we spent 4 Mondays together,
Mm-hmm.
but but to get to spend some time and see a little bit more behind the curtain from that kind of situation, I'm honored that you said yes to being my guest.
Thank you, Wheezy. I am as well. This has been a real treat, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Thanks, Wheezy.
Thanks everybody for showing up. And you can always find any of the things that we mentioned in the show notes. You can see a picture of Connor and his beautiful family in the show notes. Of course, you're seeing it here on YouTube in video, but if you've listened to the audio, see who that person is in the show notes at lifemosaic.me, and share and subscribe and all that good stuff. Until next time, everybody, bye. I'm so glad that you joined us for this episode of Life Mosaic. And you can find all the compelling information that our guests shared in the show notes, highlights and captions where to find the information. Also, I add their links if you want to contact them, learn more about them. And also, while you're there, you'll find my links for lifemosaic.me. And guess what? You can find all of my social platform information there. If you don't follow me there, you don't subscribe or whatever, for YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, it's all in the show notes. The show notes is the place to go to get that info. So while you're there, click all the links, sign up, follow, we're all the do all the things the cool kids do. And also, if you haven't, go ahead and follow me so that if you're on Podbean or other platforms, you can go ahead and follow me, subscribe, so that you never miss an episode of Life Mosaic. Because we tell compelling stories here that make life interesting. Thank you for watching, and we'll talk to you soon.